Hello, and welcome to a nor'eastern episode of the Drywall Podcast. I'm your host once again, Nick Harmon. With us today, Ken Landin of KL Drywall out of Albany, New York. We discuss Fresco Harmony, the origins of the hawk and the term hawk, and how getting in trouble at school may have led him to a lifelong career.
We sit there in the principal's office and they want to suspend me. And we look around the principal's office and they're sheetrocking the principal's office and they're renovating the offices in there. So the old man says, hey, instead of suspending him for 2 weeks, make him tape the offices in here. Now, I had only worked in closets and garages. Like I only knew how to rough coat. I couldn't second coat. I couldn't polish. So here I am thrown into the fire in my principal's office, like freaking knucklehead with all my buddies walking around the hallways. I'm standing on the principal's desk. I'm dropping mud all over the desks. Nothing's covered up. It was a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
It came out awful.
Sure.
And that's how I got thrown into it.
That's pretty funny. Ken is an awesome guy, and I know you guys are going to like this one. I am stoked for the month of May for a couple of reasons. One is it's my birthday. May is awesome. The second is May represents an entire year that the Drywall Podcast has been going. We will celebrate 50 episodes this month, but also I am proud to announce our sponsor for May, Tech Dry Tools. Tech Dry Tools is USA designed, manufactured, and assembled in Omaha, Nebraska. Their lock design allows you to choose from 3 different size blades that fit right into your pocket. Follow Tech Dry Tools on TikTok for lots of chances to win awesome swag. Also, keep your eye out for new and innovative products coming from Tech Dry Tools. I've used the Tech Dry Tools. They're super awesome, and I think you should absolutely try them. If you don't know what Tech Dry Tools are, check out my episode with Corey way back in the beginning in June of 22. I think it was episode number 4 where we discussed a Tech Dry tool when they were just getting started. They are now crushing it. Guests of the Drywall Podcast will receive a free Tech Dry tool along with a bunch of other awesome stuff in a swag bucket donated by CSR. You can find all your drywall stuff at csrbuilding.com. But for now, Ken Landin, episode 49 on the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it. That is what we do. We have Ken Landin, KL Drywall out of Albany, New York. Welcome to the Drywall Podcast.
Nick, what's happening?
Life, buddy. Life.
That's it.
You know?
That's it. I like the Fresco Harmony sign in the back, man. I sent you pictures. I tried that in my own bathroom. Freaking cool. I love it.
You do? Good. Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask about it. You know, I've got standard questions that I dive into. We're going to talk about you and the business and how you got into this crazy trade, whatever. We'll go all over the place. But first, yeah, so I think you were inquiring about Fresco Harmony, or maybe you heard the Drywall Podcast and you were like, hey, I want to be on the Drywall Podcast. And I was like, sure, man, come on, let's talk. And you were like, what's this Fresco Harmony stuff? And I was like, I'll send you a little bit. You can try it out. And you made a couple videos that I shared. They're fuzzy. But you did a base coat, and maybe your lines were too, you probably ran it like regular straight lap lines, and then when you did the second coat, those flashed through like straight lap lines instead of making your lap lines more abstract. But, that's the whole point of testing the process, and the product is to realize, oh, this does work. It matches the color. You can cover a wall with it, etc. But run me through your experience. And then, I mean, are you interested in doing more with it, or, you know, do you have questions about how to sell it? Like anything?
No. I mean, I've been doing this shit a long freaking time. Are we on live now? Is we're going, right?
Dude, we're going, dude.
So yeah, I reached out to you. I have a funny story, but I listen to podcasts sometimes on my commute back and forth to my other job. And, I just stumbled across on the Drywall Podcast, and I was like, holy shit, this is right up my alley. I've been doing this since 1979. So,
okay. So you stumbled onto the Drywall Podcast.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, funny. Did you like Google or look up drywall?
I get it on Spotify, I think, in my car, and I was punching something in, and the first two letters were DR I forget what I was looking for, and Drywall came up, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I clicked on that, and then the Drywall Podcast came up, and I'm like, this is telling me something. And then I listened to 2 episodes on the way down where I was driving south, and I was like, oh shit, I got to get on this fucking podcast, man.
Which ones did you listen to? Which podcast?
So I listened to the one dude from, I forget their names, but the one dude from Canada.
There's been a bunch from Canada.
I can't remember his name. I just listened to the most recent one, the guy from, I think he was from Brazil.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then there was another young kid. That was a recent one. But the couple of older ones, that was a couple of weeks ago. I can't recall the names, but I remember the stories. Like the guy was like and then I watched a couple of YouTube things too. You had some dude, I think was a tool rep from Can-Am or something. And if that's correct, I don't even know if that's correct or not. But,
I forget myself.
Listen, not much information creeps into the Northeast up here. Only, you guys, the Canadians and stuff, we're kind of like,
I'm in Albuquerque. I'm in Albuquerque, dude. I wouldn't have access to this information either if it wasn't for the internet or the Drywall Podcast, So
it's true. It's true. But one of the funny things is like, you're like, all right, take your sample pack and put it into a box of compound. And I'm like, dude, we don't have fucking boxes of compound up in here,
Yeah.
And I'm running around and I'm like, I know I seen a box of compound somewhere, So I wound up. This is a good segue into my Fresco experience. So I wound up just I'm like, all right, 3.5, right? I'm like, okay. So I see the dust free. I'm not a big, blue top guy. So I grab it because it's 3.5. So my mistake was, my big mistake is on that mud that comes out of that pail, it's already a little, it's not as thick as I like it to be. So when I added the liquid, when I added the Fresco Harmony, I shook everything out of the can. I got it into the bucket, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, on my drill bit, I cleaned my drill bit. A little bit of water got in there. I know immediately that my mistake is that the mud was too loose. So, I went with it though. I left it on a little heavier, and here I am as a
that doesn't seem like though just 1 8-ounce bottle. It won't make it that loose. I mean, maybe I don't use the dust free.
No, I went overboard with it because I added some liquid into the bottle.
Okay.
And I shook it and I put it in.
Cleaning.
I didn't. Yeah, and like an idiot, I'm looking in there and like Nick says to get all this stuff out of the bottle. I'm looking at it.
Absolutely.
There's still more in there, and I'm shaking it and I throw it in there. But anyway, I made it too loose. My bad.
Yeah,
but I immediately figured it out. Okay. So now I have to train myself. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm a taper. I'm not a hanger. I'm a taper. I've been a taper my whole life.
Okay.
Although I had rockers working for me on my crew at one point. I had 25 men working for me, right?
Yeah.
But I'm a taper. Wow. I'm a finisher. So my mentality is smooth and flat.
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm like, it was actually hard for me to leave lap line. So now I'm like, I'm taking pressure off the knife. I'm opening my knife. I'm flattening my knife, and I'm trying to move it around. But no matter how much I moved it around, it was still coming. Just what you said with those even fucking flat line.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not messy enough. So I did it again. That's why I texted you. I said, hey,
that's okay.
Can I go over this shit? And you were like, yeah. So I did.
As many times as you want. Just play around with that as many times as you want. Yeah, that my first few walls, I mean, I was doing racing stripes to cover up the existing texture with a 14-inch knife. I would do stripes, and then I go in between the stripes to flatten out the wall. And then I would go into the Fresco Harmony, and quickly I realized, I could just do the preliminary coat, the base coat with the color, leave a little heavier and cover up that, and then go over it tighter. And I think, the more you do it, and the more you do it, and the more you do it, you realize, oh my God, I can get away with murder with this technique.
That's 100% right.
I can 100% right. I can bury everything. And even like a patch, it's like you just smear the shit on there. Fatty edges, all that doesn't matter. And then your second coat just crushes it. And so that was a revelation for me. It was like, honestly, I was like, we're going about this mud thing all wrong. Like the entire trade. We're looking at mud the wrong way. It doesn't have to be perfect. But then we've already established it doesn't have to be perfect with ugly ass popcorn ceilings. It's like, that's okay, but then you have to have level 5. It either has to be level 5 or ugly ass popcorn or broquet. That makes zero sense to me. Why can't it just be kind of smooth?
Right.
Smooth enough for that a client would think that it's smooth. So that is common. That is a common mistake, is not mistake, but it's a common thing, breaking those 30, 40-year-old ingrained rules about finishing. No, leave it messy. Leave that base coat messy. That's hard.
It was very, very difficult for me. It really was, and I'm using a 10 inch. I'm not, no offense to the pan handlers out there. I'm not a pan monkey. I use a hawk. But,
Oh, that's kind. That's kind. You call them pan monkeys. Yeah, no offense.
I figured we have thick skin on this podcast. I figured that was appropriate.
Yeah. Hey, to all you pan monkeys out there, no offense. I use a hawk. Thank you very much. Love it.
And somebody asked me, how did the name Hawk come around? And I'm just like, come on, man. If you're a taper and you don't know that, I said, you know what? I bet you not many tapers know how.
I do not know how the term hawk came, why it's called a hawk. Enlighten the community.
I don't know if it's enlightening, but this is all unnecessary information that I store in my noggin. Because
this whole entire podcast is unnecessary information, just to clear the air. Okay,
honestly, it's as simple. It's exactly what you think it might be. Okay, and if you look it up, the definition of the hawk in the drywall trade, it came from when a hawk, a bird, came. And the commander or whoever, the instructor, whatever you want to call him, the hawk would land on the edge of his hand.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that's as simple as it is. Believe it or not.
A handler. I'm not sure what the bird specialist that would have a hawk.
It's a hawk. It's a hawk.
It makes me think of the Beastmaster. Did you ever see that with the Beastmaster? Like old, like 1980s, the guy was like a Beastmaster and he had a hawk, and the hawk would go and fly and he could see through the hawk's eyes. And then he'd controlled a panther too or something. It was like one of those cheesy 80s, but it's called the Beastmaster.
Maybe that's why subconsciously I just called all the panhandlers pan monkeys, because
they're monkeys,
which is a bird. But now it's a monkey, whatever, man. I mean, So, I mean, with the Fresco, it was really interesting to me because I had to train myself, but I got it like immediately. I did it again, and I just fucking threw it on. I literally took it and I just threw it on there, and I just, not even skipped it, but I mounted it on, and I'm like, yo, this shit, you can bury anything with this.
Yeah. Yeah, even wallpaper. We've done like wallpaper, wood paneling, cinder block, I mean, I've really, and then once you start going down the rabbit hole, it's like, whoa, you can cover tile. One of my first jobs, I primed and I covered up, instead of like tearing the tile off of a fireplace surround, I masked it off and I just mudded it. And it's still there today. Like 18 years later.
You did that on YouTube, right? You put that on YouTube, right?
I don't know.
I watched one night I got into drinking a couple of beers, go figure. Okay. And I just binged on your YouTube for about 3 hours, and I just watched all your Fresco Harmony YouTubes. And
okay.
I'm like, this motherfucker just went over brick with 90.
Yep.
And I'm like,
no issues, dude.
And then I watched you do, I think it was even in your own house, you did like an archway and you put a TV in there. And I'm like, this guy just called this drywall art. And I was like, I never referred to it as drywall art. And I actually told one of my old employees that worked for me, and I got to give him a shout out, Chris Vitale. He's known as the Drywall Avenger on social media. He worked for me for like 15 years, but I was telling him about it. I was like, no shit, man. I'm like you went over brick and you calling it drywall art and you take it to a whole nother level. And I think that's.
Well, I know that we're interviewing you, but I kind of have a funny story about the drywall art concept. When I had left the union, the colors were introduced to me and I started creating mud artwork on pieces of sheetrock. I thought it was like the coolest thing since sliced bread. And then you could put you could do like a 3-dimensional piece of art on a wall, like Bernie Mitchell does. I don't know if you've seen, we interviewed Bernie on the show. He does these beautiful murals. And I did a 3-piece drywall mud sculpture artist series. And so there's a dude out of Tucson, Arizona. We also have a guy out of Colorado, Jason Griffin, and Bernie Mitchell out of Canada. They all do artwork, dimensional artwork with quicksetting joint compound, like sculptural work. Very beautiful stuff.
Right, cool.
So cool. I sort of started doing these abstract artworks early on. This is what led to Fresco Harmony. And I was calling it like drywall art. Well, fast forward a few years, we were on like Drywall Talk and some of these other platforms, and Trimtex had coined, and I think they trademarked drywall art, and they even had a Drywall Artist of the Year contest, and several people ended up winning the Drywall Artist of the Year. And what it was not sculpture art like I was used to. Like drywall art to me was like, sculpturing with mud. No. It was like these fancy, because they were promoting their step-able chamfer, like all of these unique corner, and even their like chair rails and like all
their flex corners and all of that shit.
No, even crown molding. Like they do they do their own crown molding. Like you can get super fancy with it. And so I did 2 houses back to back with Stepple, and you probably watched the video. It's called the Venetian Corner, where I spray paint the step bowl corners and things like that. So I got into the drywall art. So that video that you're watching, ultimately, even in my mind, just to be in alignment with the industry, I consider that to be more drywall art. What I do with mud artistically is just sculptural art. It's abstract, unique sculptural art. But that stuff is so much fun to play with.
It is.
That's the background of that. And that TV wall did turn out pretty cool. We used arch step return. So I set that whole piece in a 1/2 inch, into the wall, and then I cut. I actually had to build out the backside of that wall. I had to frame out. That, yeah. To accommodate the TV. It's still not like back there enough. I want to like do a flush mount TV system so that it's like in the wall. But that's how the creative juices flow. I see stuff like
awesome.
step a bowl. Once you have access to colored mud, it's like, oh, well, you can do anything. This is limitless.
You really can. You really. I started talking to customers about the Fresco Harmony. And we talked about it quickly, providing some samples and doing some accent walls and stuff like that. And, once I get dive deeper into it a little bit, I'll start selling it a little bit more. I'm kind of like in the transition. I went back. I got into the trade back as a young kid in 1977. I worked all through high school. I incorporated KL Drywall in 1988. But back when I first started, there wasn't ready mix compound. It was all, USG 275 with retardner. You had to mix that together, add the retardner so it didn't harden up. There was no such thing as buckets. We didn't have buckets. We were stealing like garbage pails and stuff and mixing shit. And then the transition started, right, where they started doing the ready mix. Started with the metal cans. Then it had the asbestos, and then they did without the metal cans because there was rust in the mud. Then it went to plastic, and then they took the asbestos out. So we watched all of that.
Interesting.
And that's how long I've been doing it. And back when I was in I think it was eighth grade. So that would put me at 14, 15. So my family had a drywall company in Manhattan.
Okay, so you're second generation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was called Action Taping in Manhattan. And the family had about 200 guys working, and I worked my way up. But I worked up as, when you're an apprentice and you come in, I'm working in closets, you're rough coating closets, you're doing garages and stuff like that, and you're just trying to break into the trade. And I really had hardly any experience. But the thing was, it gave me a great work ethic, and I understood the value of $1 from a very young kid.
Hey, wait a second. What's work ethic? What is that thing you speak of?
In today's day and age, there is no such thing. Hence the reason why I got into the business, to try and be an advocate for the trade. But,
sure. Back
then, we're 14, 15, 16 years old, all getting into trouble, whatever we can do. And everyone, they're all working in supermarkets and they're working at this. I'm on the weekends in the summertime, I'm learning a trade. I'm in there working. So I get in trouble in school. I get suspended. They want to suspend me for 2 weeks. So my old man comes in. We sit there in the principal's office, and they want to suspend me. And we look around the principal's office, and they're sheetrocking the principal's office, and they're renovating the offices in there. So the old man says, hey, instead of suspending them for 2 weeks, make them tape the offices in here. Now, I had only worked in closets and garages. I only knew how to rough coat. I couldn't second coat. I couldn't polish. So here I am thrown into the fire in my principal's office, like a freaking knucklehead with all my buddies walking around the hallways. I'm standing on the principal's desk. I'm dropping mud all over the desks. Nothing's covered up. It was a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
It came out awful.
Sure.
And that's how I got thrown into it.
That's pretty funny.
I didn't get suspended. But it was like 20 boards. It took me all of 2 weeks to fucking finish it, and it looked like shit. It was awful.
Yeah.
But then,
it probably looked better. It probably looked better than anybody else could have done it, though, I would imagine, with a little bit of experience. No.
A little bit. I mean, I did. I learned very, very young. I got into the union, Manhattan in the union. The union was called 1974 Plasterers and Painters Union. I joined when I was 18 years old, and I rose through the ranks really quickly because I already knew the trade, and I got to a level in the union where I was already at top pay scale. So what was the next best thing was going to my own business. And then I started KL Drywall. But, back then, we were buying rock for 9 cents a square foot. A can of compound was $3.99. And look at the prices now. It's absurd. And, but I developed a very unique kind of drywall company where I had really good guys working for me, and we were doing a lot of track work, bead monsters, return windows, everything, and they weren't paying that much. So I said, how do I get myself to the next level? And I said, we got to go after the high end, and we started doing crazy shit. We started doing, we would power plane the studs. We would do everything with a laser. We would put resilient channel on the ceilings to make sure the kitchens and the bathrooms and everything was square and level. So we were doing the extra at that time that no one else was doing. That kind of put me in a category where I was getting a lot of the bigger, more detailed jobs.
This is your dad's company at that time?
No, this was my company, KL Drywall, when I started that. That's
KL Drywall. And that started in like 88. How long before you started your own company? How old were you around that time?
So like 1982, to 88.
Okay.
I worked a little bit more. Yeah, about right out of, so I graduated 82, 83. So right out of high school, I got into the union. And then in 88, I opened my own company.
Why did you leave the union and go open your own company? You just wanted more of a challenge?
Stupidity. Because if I would have stayed in the fucking union, I would be retired right now. But no, I got, like I said, I got to the highest pay scale at that point. I was like 21 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like, what else am I going to do? What's my next move? And everybody was like, oh, go in your own business.
You got to go sow your oats, so to speak. Right.
But, look, this is going back a really long time. This was before Trimtex. This is when Straight Flex started coming out with all of their materials, right? And we were getting all of this different shit that they were sending. I worked very well with Camco Supply. I was the premier drywall guy. They recommended me to the Straight Tech Straight Flex guy came up and said, hey, we need a drywall guy to represent us. We're coming out with all these new products. We want someone to be like a Northeast rep and, go into lumber yards and go on jobs and sell this stuff, like see if you can sell it. And they interviewed me and I was like, yeah, that sounds like something maybe I could do. And I remember the truck pulling up in front of my house and this guy came out with this monster box and it was everything that Trimtex had. It was the fucking corners. There was this stuff that you put on the 45s on the ceiling that you only nailed into some of the ceiling joints and it collapsed and made it level. And there was perforated stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is all this stuff? Like we had no idea.
Yeah.
And then we started using it. And
were you using the tools back then?
No tools.
No tools. Hand. Do you use tools now or are you hand?
I've always been hand.
You are okay. You're sort of a rare bird. Just to stick with the hawk. You might not be a monkey, but you are a rare bird. So yeah, a lot, as with the advancements in the industry, I'll let you continue on with your story because it's interesting, but I just wanted to clarify we don't get a lot of like solid hand finishers on here. There's still a few you left out there. And so we'll dive into that a little more, but keep going with your story.
Listen, when we got introduced, there were other guys, like I never personally learned how to use the bazooka or the boxes or anything like that. But there were guys like when we were running and we were doing production, big flat work production, we would bring in guys. And most of the guys that we brought in were all from the West Coast. Like this was not an East Coast thing. Okay. It was all West Coast. As close that we got is we would run the banjo.
Yeah.
We would run the banjo.
How do you tape today?
I tape all by hand.
You tape by hand. Do you have one of those little reels on your belt loop?
I got a handmade one that's a piece of black iron that I forged out that I've been using for like 30 years.
I love it, dude. You are old school.
And I just use that. And I still use a corner roller, but when I look at these guys,
that's a tool, Ken. That is a tool.
So I use the corner roller.
No flushers or no glazers, none of that.
Nope, nothing. Okay. All by hand. And
okay,
I worked in the New York Penta Hotel across from Madison Square Garden for 2 years doing all the plaster restoration work in the bathrooms. I worked at the Waldorf Astoria doing all the ornamental plaster work.
Neat.
Worked in Manhattan for many, many, many years just doing crazy, crazy shit. And if it's in the wall, it doesn't have to be sheetrock. If it's plaster, I don't care if it's horsehair. I don't care if it's newspaper. I don't care if it's Celotex back, wax board. If it's in the wall or a ceiling, I can fix it and make it flat.
Okay.
And I learned, use Instructolite. I learned all of that shit. And I still use the ready mix and the quick drying shit today to my advantage. I mean, it's great. We didn't have any of that shit back then.
We'll do, because I'm in New Mexico, so we have a lot of that old school hardcore plaster. You've got the lath And then you got like, the wood slats with the heavy plaster, and it's failing all the time.
It's always failing.
But yeah, Structilite though. A lot of people haven't heard of Struct. I love that shit, man. That stuff's awesome.
That stuff's incredible.
I've covered fireplaces with Structilite too, but I feel like the Quickset's better even than Structilite. Like, it doesn't shrink. You can get Structilite smoother, but yeah, if I have a lot of fill, Structilite's fantastic. If there's something like really nasty, like your plaster jobs, you probably bust out that Structilite to smooth something out that's just really rough.
If I have to, the Structilite's always in the truck, but the dirt, all of the numbers, man, the 20s, the 45s, the 60s, and 90s. I had none of that shit back then, man. We had to do it all with crap compound, and if you can make shit flat with all of that stuff back then, this stuff now, like, I buy 45. I use that shit all the time, man. That stuff's incredible, man. It's just, it doesn't move.
Yeah.
And I can, on top of that, I can get shit done in 10 times the amount of time, and it's just the innovation that has, come over the course of the years is just phenomenal to me. And
well, and around the tools, around the tools, the innovation is amazing. So don't you feel like you're missing out a little bit by not like jumping into the whole tool world? They're kind of fun. The bazooka's fun to run, man. It's a bitch, but it's a lot of fun once you figure it out.
Listen, man, I'm on the back end of my career right now. You know what I do? I do minimum charge sheetrock and plaster patching, water damage repair jobs.
Okay.
Somebody asked me to hang 4 boards. I'm like, fuck you, I ain't hanging nothing.
Oh, okay.
I'll finish it.
I call those prima donnas. You're a prima donna bird.
That's all right. When you put in 45 years, you're allowed to be a prima donna.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. No. Yeah, even guys with like 5 years, they become prima donnas, overnight.
Yeah, well, we had all of those terms back when we were working, and we prima donnas. We would listen, man. I did it for years and years. We worked for 25 cents, 30 cents a square foot. We were producing, man, and it was all by hand. And we battled everybody. We battled the floor guys. We battled the electricians, the plumbers. And the guys who were cool with us, we wound up working very well with them. The guys who weren't usually found their pile of trim or their pile of oak flooring with fucking giant globs of mud fucking dropped on them on purpose,
Yeah. The electricians, were the electricians cleaner back then? Did they clean up after themselves?
God, no. Nobody cleaned up.
No.
Do you understand, Nick? Do you understand? I try and tell everybody this. Do you understand the damage that a fucking wire nut can do to a guy who's walking on the stilts?
Yeah.
You hit a wire nut, you step on a wire nut, you're done.
Yeah.
And
what would I slip on? It was always something, a bolt. That that foot just goes, and cords.
It goes.
I always fell on the cords. When I was in the mobile homes, and they had the air hoses all over the houses. I'd trip on those man. You get caught on an air hose.
Yeah, you're down.
Fell like 5 times.
I mean, I'm 6'2", so on the 8-foot ceilings, I use the short stilts, 14-inch stilts, got me right up there. But I'd be on those things 8 hours a day sometimes.
You're 6'2"?
I'm just under 6'2". Yeah.
That's pretty tall.
So, but
not bad.
Once I passed 225 pounds, the red light on the stilts would go on and be like, "Hey, fat boy, you can't go on these anymore." I'd be like, "Hey, so how much do you think these stilts can take? I'm 240 now. I think it can hold me."
Nice. I've never seen where the red light is located on those stilts. I gotta look closer.
If you look really hard, it's on the bottom, and the more it blinks, the more in danger you are.
Yeah, danger. That's funny. The red light on the stilt. It makes me want to go paint like a check engine light, on my stilts. Like, put it on.
And then And then you get up to the big stilts, the bigger ones. But listen, man, people don't understand. That shit takes its toll on your body, man. I did it for many, many years. I had some knee surgeries because of the stilts, just running up and down. But it's no different from, a floor guy with his back, or a tile guy with his knees. We all. And I think that the stereotypical mindset with the tradesmen is just like, they're unskilled people. They're just grunt workers, which is so untrue nowadays. I think being a trade advocate nowadays more than ever is so so important and so necessary, because no one's looking down on the trades anymore. And it's funny, in another 5 years, when you have no one to do anything, like.
What do you mean no one's looking? They're still looking down on the trades. I think we're valued more, but I think there's still a like, oh, you're a piece of shit plumber, and the plumber's like, oh, that's fine. You can call me a piece of shit. That'll be $500 for me to, tighten the fucking bolt on your pipe.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
you're right.
He's like, we're like, I don't give a shit. I don't care that it took me 20 minutes. It's $500, and they'll pay it because they don't have a choice.
Right. They don't have a choice.
The other guy's charging $500 too.
I love it. I love it when people come, for me, that's why I said I do minimum charge jobs, and on the back end of my career. And I shouldn't say that. I'm on the back end. I got out of the drywall industry in 2008 and opened up a brewery. And so I brew my own beer, and it's still going today. And I'm on the back end of that, getting out of that, transitioning back into drywall because I see the need for it and whatnot. But
that's Crossroads Brewery, right?
Yeah, Crossroads Brewery. Yeah, we
Crossroads.
Opened that Yep. Crossroads.
What year did you open?
I opened the first location 2009, and then the second location 2017.
Shut the hell up! You got 2 locations of breweries.
Yeah, but I'm selling both of them because I want to get out of the industry.
Why?
It's run its course.
There's a lot of micro beers out there now.
It's very saturated, and I said, it's funny because how you get. The one, I was in the trade for so long, and I got to a point when my son went off to college. I was like down living on Long Island. I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? My son's moving off. I said, let me try something else. I wanted to get out. I did everything there was to do except work the tools, the machine. But I said, let's move on. And the microbrew industry back in 2005 was really hot. So I got into that and, ran that for 10 years. And then I started talking to a lot of local carpenters and stuff, and they say, oh, you got to trade. This is not long ago. You got to trade, like maybe a year ago. You got to trade. You're a taper. I said, yeah, I'm a taper. It's like, there's a need for that. So I said, oh, yeah, let's see. So I started putting my feelers out there, and next thing you know, there's nobody out there that's doing it. There's no one. And my phone's ringing off the hook. So now I'm running fucking 3 businesses. And I started thinking to myself, I said, okay, how can I make more money in less amount of time as I'm moving on in age? I'm in my late 50s, and I said, not that I don't want to work. I love what I do. I love the trade. I love helping people. I love going in and fixing shit, and that was kind of like my transition. I said, all right, I ran this beer business for 14 years. Now I'm starting to get back into the drywall industry. And, I have a minimum charge. Like you said, people still look down on us like your bottom feeders. And this is a funny story, and I'm not so much a story, but kind of like my theory. And a woman, I charge you $400, do a small air conditioner patch with some water damage, and I was done in like 2 hours. And she says to me, she says, hey, you charge me $400. I'm like, yeah. She said, it only took you 2 hours. And I looked at her and I said, no, it actually took me 35 years.
That's right.
She kind of looked at me, and I was like, it's true. I mean, I've been doing this for that long. If I just started, I wouldn't be able to do it in 2 hours. It could take somebody 10 hours, and then that would be a good deal for you.
And then you said, wait a second. Did I say 400? I meant 600.
600. I mean, it's, but that's the mentality. And like you said earlier, people do frown. They do look at the trades a little bit. Maybe they value a little bit, but they still look down. You're getting dirty every day, and but for me, it's been eye-opening the last year in the transition back into the trade, being out of it for 10 years, only on a small level, and now coming back to it and seeing all of the change. And who would have thunk? Like, I ran my business back in the day. I mean, I was on top of shit, man. I was on the job with my guys every day.
Yeah.
I was on the stilts with them. We were working. And now, who would have thunk? All you got to do is actually call people back and you pretty much got the job. I'm like, that's it. That's all it takes, because nobody even calls back. So
I bumped my prices on Fresco Harmony recently. In the past year, I've probably gone up 25%, and I'm still not getting any no's. They're not batting an eye.
So I think we need to, as you know, look, I have a coach that I work with. He always says business is business, fun is fun, right? I think we let the marketplace decide, and that's what you do. You bump it up, and if nobody says no, you bump it up. Nobody says no, you don't get any pushback. The marketplace is letting you decide what's out there.
And we have to be okay with that $400 price tag. And I've talked about this on other podcasts, like the value that we put in ourselves, where it's like, you know what, I'm worth that, because and I'll even stop myself. I've given this shit away for years. Plaster walls, like beautiful colored joint compound walls. Call it plaster, call it Fresco Harmony, whatever the fuck you want. I don't care.
Whatever you want. Yeah.
Takes a lot of skill. Takes a lot of knowledge. I had to develop a whole goddamn product line, and it's like, that's what it costs. Fuck you.
That's what it fucking costs. You're right.
You want this shit for free? You want me to come do it for free? I got friends that are like, hey, come Fresco Harmony. I just bought a remodel. I'm like, fuck you, dude. My guy's busy. My wife wants shit for free. I'm like, nah, I gotta charge you.
I love it.
Sorry.
Perfect.
I can either make money over here, or make money on your job. I can't do it for free anymore. I've given so much Fresco Harmony away. I can't even begin to tell you how much of this shit I've given away.
Listen,
tons.
I totally get it. And if you put the things into that perspective, going back in your career and all of the things that we have give, whether it be for friends, family, or in the younger years, going in and having bigger eyes than you realize, and saying, hey, wow, this, 500 board house, I can do this for, 14 cents a square foot, and taking a beating on it and busting your ass and not making any money. All of those days just to free. Now it's time, now we get an opportunity to get the payoff,
I was always when I was first starting the Fresco, it was 2000, and I remember doing an entire house, all kinds of patchwork and shit. She had a budget for $2,200, and I mean, she was breaking my balls. I probably went through 30 boxes of mud. It was a big job.
That's big, yeah.
Maybe a $14,000 job today. Yeah, $2,000. I'm looking at material costs. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have $600 or $700 in material costs.
Sure, yeah.
And I needed the money. I wasn't doing anything else. I needed the money. I ended up making, and I would break down all the numbers after the job. I ended up making $12 an hour. But the way that I looked at it was, I just got paid for all that experience, all that learning curve of doing the color. It was not only did I not have to pay for an education, but I got paid $12 an hour to learn all that shit. So that's just kind of the way I always looked at it. And hell yeah, now it's no way, dude. I don't set foot on a job for less than $1,400, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. It's about time that we've actually can reap the financial rewards of all of the, the years in the trenches, man. The years, battling on those jobs, working for, very, very little amount of money.
Yeah.
And
that's collectively industry wide.
Collectively. Yeah,
we all,
100%.
We all need to continue raising the bar, pushing that limit. Even with the builders, I talked with AG Drywall. He's down in Tennessee. from Canada. Great interview, great guy. But we talked about that. He got some pushback from one of the builders, and he just walked. Bye, dude. I'll go. Yeah. I'm good at what I do. This builder over here will want a good drywaller. I can go work. I can go work for them. Being prepared to do that, because you've heard it too. The builders that are like, it's hard. The builders, more than anybody else, they seem to like, know how to squeeze those profit margins. And those are the guys they're the biggest pain in the ass. Like, I'd rather work for a homeowner.
Listen, the other thing too, Nick, is that, I agree with that. The homeowners sometimes can drive you insane, but I think they more or less drive you insane because the lack of knowledge, and they just don't know. Whereas the builder, when you get to that point, let's think about it, right? From the start to the finish, we're one of the last trades to come in besides the painter, right? So by that time, that pool of money is gone. So they're looking to fucking squeeze every dollar out of what's left as they possibly can. And who are they going to beat up? The taper and the painter. Yeah. And that's it's always been that way. And I'm like,
to where we're not charging to go back and do patchwork. That blows my mind. It's like, no. And drywallers will even say, oh no, we don't charge for that. I don't charge it. The electrician's going to go through and Swiss cheese your ceiling and change all these fixtures out. And then, that's part of my bid price. Fuck that.
That was a battle. I literally watched the fucking guy. Oh, where do you want that hi-hat? And the electrician would go, hold on, right here. Bash. Oh, you don't want it there? Bash. Oh, the taper will take care of that. What do you mean the taper's going to take care of that? I'm working on the other wing on the other side. I got nothing to do with this shit over here. Oh, and we always used to have the funny saying back in the day, right? Everything was always, could you just? And we would just say, no. Could you just, while you got that mud on your hawk, could you just come over on the other side? Could you just drive your hawk with the mud to the other side of the neighborhood and hit this patch? Could you just? It's never fun. Yeah. Could you just?
Why you got mud? Where you mud? Can you walk down? Can you walk 40 blocks? Just do a patch down another job.
Yeah, because you're working, right? You're roughing out a basement or you're on the main floor and the electrician fucks something up or the plumber fucks something up all the way on the other side in the family room. And now it's your fault. Now it's your problem. Mm-hmm. Now you got to trudge all the way over there. Wait a minute. I got nothing to do with that. Yeah. But yeah, they make the patches and they just think that's included. And I always tell people, I go, listen, if you go to the restaurant and you get a steak and you order a side, it's not free. You got to pay for it.
Well, I always use that analogy too when I go to get paid, like, because then they hold the money. They like to hold the money for as long as possible. I'm like, when you go buy a gallon of milk, you don't take the milk home and see if it tastes good. You buy the damn milk and you take it home. I get pissed, man. I want my money. Like you said, it was going to be here. I want it. Homeowners are like, how much can I pay you? I've got my checkbook. Here's my checkbook. Do you need some money? Builders are like, you got to drive. I don't know where I'm going to be today. I might be at this job around 4:00. And it's like, dude,
right.
Give me a break. You have to drive and go find them. I have homeowners dropping checks by my office. That's a power thing.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's
gone are the days, dude. Gone are the days that they can, I'm not only am I getting deposits now up front to hold the job, but I'm getting half. And awesome. There's a couple jobs where I got the entire amount up front. They thought I was from another planet. And it was a plaster job. And I was really nervous about it because plaster jobs are like, well, it was a window company, very reputable window company here in town, and they needed this plaster job. Of course, nobody does plaster repair. With the Fresco Harmony, you can use the color in the mud, and Dyrene Candy, Westbrook Tan, a little of this color, a little of that color, some faux paint, and you can totally do a plaster patch with Fresco Harmony and the sealers and shit. Works great. I've done several of them, but I told this reputable company, I was like, I'll do it. There's no guarantees that the client is going to like it, and I need to get paid up front. Like, right to the day of starting, I'm like, they held like the check, and like it was like tooth and nail, and finally right at the end, I was like, I'm gonna pull off this job unless you show up with my money. Like, I'm not gonna start, and you're gonna get
checks in the mail. Yeah, all of it. Yeah, I'll be over here on this job site. Yeah,
they ended up paying, and they had to let me know it was unprecedented. They never do that, and I was like, I don't give a shit. I don't care if you do it or you don't do it. You want the fucking patch done or not? So
I like it.
That, and I'm not saying that to brag. Even to me, it was a hard practice to do. It was almost like a practice for me to like explore my own value, you know? Like, why don't we get money up front? You know, you're a good finisher. You know, you're going to show up and get the damn job done. Yeah, there's a lot of subs that are douchebags that'll take the money and run. There's a lot of those guys. But if you're reputable and you're good at what you do, they can call references, you know?
Sure. Absolutely.
And it's like, why am I funding your job? I don't have money. I'm a drywaller.
Right. The deposits thing. Look, at the end of the day, I think that, you know, you get the contractors and the homeowners, and they look at our trade as is like, oh, this is just a bunch of clowns piling in a station wagon, showing up with some stilts and going to walk around and throw some mud around. We are running a business. This is a business, and cash flow is a big proponent of the business. Yes. Deposits help with cash flow. Look, we have insurance costs.
Yep.
You know, all of those things. And I think that we as a trade, you know, got devalued like that. We're like, fuck these guys. They don't need any upfront money. Look at them. They're fucking this and that. And for us to actually, I love that point that you brought up, because I think it's really, really important, you know, to sit there and say, hey, I had to learn what my value was, and be able to walk in with confidence and just say, yeah, I am worth this much. And I think this is what I warrant my trade. This is my years of experience that you're paying for. And I think also with that, learning how to say no is also a big learning curve, because in the beginning, I can remember me, I was young, I was hungry, and you're saying yes to everything. Yes. It's a scary thing when you have to get to a point where you can actually say no. And you're like, oh, fuck, where's the next job? Where am I going to next job? So that's also a confidence builder as well. If you can say no and get to that point, you know what? I always tell, I think it's funny because, you know, it's always, well, the customer is interviewing. Did you ever think for one time that maybe the drywall guy, maybe I'm interviewing you to see if I want to work for you? Mm-hmm. You know, maybe I don't get along with you, or I think you're a douchebag. You know, I don't want to work for you. So when you get to that level, and I'm this, like you said, this isn't a bragging thing. This isn't like an arrogant thing. This is just talking to how do we get the value for our experience? And those are all the things that go with it, you know? And I think to have that mentality is a big, big deal. You know?
Vetting clients and also builders. Because you got to watch out. You got to watch out for those builders, man. I remember going to look at a patch with my guy Jack, clear out in Placitas, 30-minute drive one way. You know, I'm burning 3 hours. The guy said that the patch looked a certain way. He sent me a photo. I asked him a specific question about the patch, you know, and the answer he gave me was not correct. When I got to the job, I was instantly pissed. Because I was like, sure, you said it was this way and it's not this way. And he disguised it with, we're going to do Fresco Harmony on a bunch of stuff, but I really need this patch done. Nobody else will do it. When it's like, I figured out exactly why nobody else would do it. Because the guy's a douchebag. And like, I called him and I was like, I'm happy to do the Fresco Harmony. I don't want to do that patch. Because it's nightmare patch. And, didn't even call back, not even the common courtesy to, like, you know, call back. And I burned probably 4 hours, you know, and guess what? I don't ever have to work with that guy again.
I totally agree with you. But to get to that level where you have the confidence build, you know, you have that confidence in your value and what you bring to the table, you know, it takes a little bit of time in the beginning. And I've had many of those builders where I chased for money and I just ran around and, wasted more time. And then I realized it's like, if they don't respect your time, they don't respect you. And don't use that carrot in front of the horse trick. Well, you know what? If you do this job for, 10 cents a square foot, I'll give you all of these other houses over here. And how many times I fell for that? It was just be like, fuck you after that, So,
you're going to get a lot of work from this one. A lot.
Yeah.
We're gonna. So I hope you have the next year open, because you're gonna be busy, and it's like crickets. It's like
it's like crickets. Just like, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you, and it never works out that way.
I do have a pivot. I do have a pivot a concept for your brewery. I don't know if you thought about it, but NA beer, non-alcoholic beer. Have you considered going in that direction? Because I think that is the next huge market to hit. I think you're still on the front end of it, but all of these major dudes are coming out with NA beers now.
Yeah, but the problem is, if I do an NA beer, I can't market to any drywallers.
That's true. It's cutting out 80% of your business.
It's 80%.
Sorry, 95% of your business. Yeah.
I would have a better chance of going into the cannabis industry.
Yeah, right.
The NA, it's one of those things, like the big boys who have that down pat. I think somebody came to me not long ago, and when the seltzer craze was going, they were like, why don't you make seltzer, spike seltzer,
or seltzer. Even 5 years ago, I think that NA beer, man, you would have been like on the cutting edge of that, because that gets your beer into the location. You're like, hey, you guys should try my beer. It's really good. But we also have an NA beer option for the DUI.
It's a difficult process, and I don't think any NA beer is truly NA. There is a small percentage that they can't remove. But I think at this point in time, if you're just contemplating or just getting into the game now, you're already 5 years behind, and that was the case with the seltzer too. It's like, what am I going to do? Put myself into, by the time I perfect that, and by the time I get into that market, I'm already behind. So it's just, and it's a tough process,
who cares anyways? Who cares anyways? Because you can take advantage of old ladies and way upsell patches. And just be stealing money from these old ladies left and right. I can't afford anything. You're charging me $400 for my patch. Sorry, man.
Imagine I do have a heart. I'm actually most of the customers that I do work for nowadays, I actually become friends with them, and they invite me over for like dinner. They give me bottles of wine, and they say, "Oh, what do you eat?" And I just did a job not long ago for an older Italian woman right here up in Albany, and she couldn't get anybody to do this repair. She sent me home with a bottle of Prosecco and a bag of broccoli rabe.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Like, okay, I'm gonna eat tonight. We'll make a little pasta and put it together. But that's in this day and age, I don't know how it is out west, but especially here, if you just show a little consideration, you actually call the people back, treat them with respect, you do the job when you say you're going to be there. I think you can really not get away with, but you can warrant your price, and people are willing just for. And I used to tell the guys, customers way back, when I had all the guys working, I said, look, I might be more expensive, but what's it worth to you to make one phone call? Like, you're going to make one phone call and you're going to know the job's complete from start to end. You're not going to be looking out your window going, hey, where are these guys? Like, are they going to show up today? Or are they not going to show up today? We were on a reputable, KL Drywall was a reputable, top of the line drywall company on Long Island for 25 plus years. I mean, to me, that says a lot of what we did, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of the fact that I had many guys working for me for 12, 15 years. One dude, 17 years. I watched him have kids and pay off mortgages working for me. I mean, that to me is a big success. And I'm very, very proud of that, So for people to, I get very defensive, and I know you do too, when people do look at the trade, our trade specifically, and really put us, earmarked or labeled as bottom feeders. Like, what the fuck did these guys know? You know, I get defensive about it. So,
and that's,
I'm a big trade advocate,
That's another reason for the Fresco. I mean, you're just taking basically the same skills that you have. You're throwing color into the mud, and you're like doing something completely different. That now all of a sudden, because there's color in the mud, I can charge 4 times as much, and I get a pat on the back. I don't get browbeaten. So there's kind of that little thing there too. There was a lot of that when I started. It was like, oh, these plaster guys are getting a lot of money. I feel like I could do it easier with joint compound. Ken Landin out of Albany, New York. I do a little thing called Pearl of Wisdom, where I ask about, you probably recognize, where I ask each interviewee if they have a pearl of wisdom they could bestow upon the drywall community. What is yours?
The drywall community, words of wisdom, huh? Pearl of wisdom.
From Ken. This is your one shot, buddy.
One and only shot. I mean, I have a lot of words of wisdoms, but I think if I were to say anything, at the end of the day, to wrap it all up, I think success is something you achieve by the person you become. And, I think that never, don't devalue just what we talked about. Don't devalue your value,
What do you mean by that? Success is the person you become.
Success is something you achieve by the person you become. In other words, you can't look out at the environment and change the environment to be successful. You have to change yourself, at least I believe that. I believe that the work, don't change the sunshine, don't change the rain, don't change the soil, just don't wish for things to be easier, wish for you to be better. Don't wish for things to be cheaper, make more money,
That's very Gandhi, sort of like Gandhi, be the change you want to see.
Hey man, I'm very multi-layered. I'm like an onion. If you start peeling shit back, you never know what you're gonna find.
Maybe
I mean, it's true. It's true. It's true.
Very good talking to you, Ken. Pretty cool, right? We just talk about drywall, talk about the industry. We got into some of the costs and the price points and things like that. But I appreciate your time. You're very, knowledgeable. I appreciate you giving Fresco a whirl. You need to get a couple colors, make some samples. That's how you sell it. But you could certainly diversify your current business model by doing some accent walls. Anytime somebody wants a thing skimmed out, it's just a kind of a fun caveat to being a drywaller. But thanks so much. Thanks for being on the Drywall Podcast, man. You were a lot of fun.
Oh man, I love it. I think it's great, man. We have to revisit in a couple of months, 6 months from now, and see what happens. Maybe I'll get my minimum charge up to like $2,000. Who knows?
Sure. I mean, and you're in probably a higher end area too, where I mean, I get a lot of like plaster, because when you start going down that path, then people don't know me as the drywall patch guy. I'll turn down the patches. I'm just the fancy wall guy. That's what you turn into. Okay. And there's no fancy wall guys out there. So when you do enough that you become the fancy wall guy, well, there's no competition. It's nice.
Hey, listen, I already have a plan for the Fresco Harmony. There's no one in this area that's even heard of it. There's no one that even knows what it is. And I've already started talking to some of my customers about it to see what their feedback was, and like, hey, and once I start, getting it more out there and presenting some samples, I'll be able to sell that. There's no reason why I can't, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not for, it may not be for every house or it may not be for everyone, but at least I have it in my arsenal where I can be able to present it as something else that we can provide for the homeowner, you know?
Right.
So,
well, I hope you have a good day, sir. Thank you for adjusting your schedule a little bit. It worked out, and I'm glad we got to talk, man. So cool to get to know you. Next time I'm in Albany, we'll have to hang out.
Even in Manhattan. I'm only 45 minutes from Manhattan.
My sister-in-law is up in the Catskills. We go to New York all the time. I love it.
Yeah, the brewery's in Catskill. So
they're outside of Cold Spring, New York.
Yeah, remember we talked. That was Owen.
Oh yeah, you know Owen. Did you listen to my interview with Owen?
A little bit of it, yeah, a little bit. The one that was outside.
Yeah. He's a character.
I know of Owen. I don't know him very well personally. When I was coming into Athens, he was kind of on his way out.
That's right.
My brewery is literally a block away from the Stewart house that he used to own. So it's a small world.
That is nuts. Yeah.
That's a whole nother story for another podcast.
Chapter 2.
You know.
All right, buddy. Well, you have a good day. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, Nick. Thanks. It was a pleasure, and looking forward to talking with you in the future.
All right, sir. Bye. Special thanks to Ken Landin of KL Drywall for being with us on the Drywall Podcast today. I appreciate your time and your knowledge. The Drywall Podcast can be listened to in its entirety on your favorite platforms such as Podbean, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and also YouTube. Stay tuned next Friday when I have a special 50th episode planned. We are going to distill the iconic pearls of wisdom down into one full-length episode so that you can absorb the amazing brilliance that is the drywall community. This episode of the Drywall Podcast was brought to you by Tech Dry Tools. Guests of the Drywall Podcast will receive a cool Tech Dry tool along with lots of other great swag compliments of CSR. You can find Tech Dry Tools and just about every other drywall tool you'd ever want at csrbuilding.com. Check out their store in Toronto also. Thank you so much for joining us on the Drywall Podcast today. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys and gals have a fantastic weekend, and remember, keep drywalling.